This might be weird, but I've dreamed of saying these words for a long time now. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. It is insane how capable phones have become with taking video, and regardless of whether you're a full-time YouTuber or cinematographer, or if you're just a hobbyist taking videos for fun, phone video is here to stay. These are super capable tools, but it still comes down to how you use the tool. So I'm going to share some of my favorite ways to get better videos with your phone. Now, I have an iPhone, and I'm only going to be talking about using the native app on the iPhone. I'm not talking about downloading Filmic Pro or any of those extra tools, because for me personally, when I use a phone, it's all about quick convenience. I don't want to be opening an app. I just want to click that camera button and start filming right away. The first tip is basically a ground rule that applies to all of the rest of the tips in this video, and that's to lock your exposure and your autofocus. In my opinion, the best way to make a video look really amateur and unprofessional is to have changing exposure levels. So when you take your phone and you start filming, it's automatically going to adjust the exposure to whatever you're pointing at. So if you're shifting from inside to outside, or even if you're just turning the angle, the exposure is going to be changing, the white balance is going to be changing, and it just doesn't look professional. So all you need to do is tap once on the area that you want to focus on, and then tap and hold, and that's going to lock the exposure and the focus, so that no matter where you turn your camera, point it, whatever, it's going to keep all of those same exposure levels. The next tip might just be personal preference, but never stand and pan. When you're at a landscape and you have these beautiful 180-degree views, it's really tempting to just take your phone and turn and capture everything in the landscape. Okay, so to clarify movement, a pan is when you're just rotating and capturing whatever happens as you rotate. I think a better way to capture landscape is to mess around with jibs, where you're moving up and down, or track from left to right. Especially if you have a subject in your foreground, then you can kind of reveal the landscape by tracking out from behind the object, or even if there's a rock in front of you that you jib upwards away from. It really just adds another element to kind of reveal that landscape that looks really professional. Okay, the next tip is kind of a flashier one. It's definitely a more modern look, and really I just think it's fun. It's a fun trick, and that's using the time-lapse mode to create hyperlapses.
What?
Now this definitely is not something that works in all edits. It's kind of a very newer, punchier, modern look. So hyperlapses usually work best when you have a subject of interest and you're moving closer to them, or you're tracking left and right around them. But again, you want to use that first tip and click to focus, and then click and hold to lock exposure on your subject. And then you're just going to walk towards your subject slowly, and you want to make sure that you're keeping your subject in the same part of your frame. So if you have the grid on, it helps to kind of know where your subject is on the grid, and just keep that subject there and walk forward as steadily as you can. And the software in the phone is going to stabilize your time lapse, and you end up with some pretty cool hyperlapses. The next tip is to build your online presence with Squarespace.com. Obviously I'm saying that because they're the sponsor of this video, but if you're watching this video because you want to turn your videos into a business, Squarespace.com is definitely a great place to start. They make it super easy to pull in content from YouTube or Instagram, so that you can really display a portfolio that's beautifully put together with work you've already done on other social media platforms. I actually didn't have a website for quite a while into my time freelancing, and I think it was just because I was always super intimidated by the process. I didn't know how to build a website or how to secure a domain, and I even tried some tools that weren't Squarespace that discouraged me even more because it was complicated and confusing. Squarespace made my life so much easier when I was trying to put together a website and was just feeling overwhelmed by the process. It was such a breath of fresh air to have these easy to use templates that looked good and the user interface is super intuitive. So if you're like me and you've been putting off building a website, stop doing that and go to squarespace.com/JakeFrew, where you'll get a completely free trial to start building your site, and then when you're ready to launch, you'll get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website. The next tip is to include a subject, and this might sound really obvious, but I think a lot of times we use our phones for video when we're on vacation or visiting beautiful places or tourist sites, and it's really easy to just kind of film the landscape or film whatever the site you're seeing is. But it's important to remember that you're either capturing a memory, and the best part of memories is having people that you care about in that video, or if you're making more of a cinematic edit, it's really helpful to have a character experiencing that place to add a little more connection for the audience to resonate with. So this can be filming your friends, experiencing the space that you're at, or if you're filming alone, you can even just set your phone down and then film yourself walking in this area, the landscape or the tourist site. Whatever it is, it really helps to have a character in the shot. Okay, and this last one, I think might be the most important to me personally, because to me, one of the biggest giveaways for phone footage or unprofessional footage is when the contrast and saturation is too high. Typically, the native video app on any phone, for whatever reason, it just puts a ton of saturation and a ton of contrast in the shot that I don't think looks very good. It doesn't look film-like, it doesn't look very professional. So you want to go into your editing tool, whatever that is, whether that's an app or that's Premiere Pro, Final Cut. Pretty much every video editing app has a way to change the contrast and saturation of a shot. So I use Premiere Pro, so I'll take the contrast all the way down to -50 and then drop the saturation by, I don't know, 15 to 20, just depending on how it looks. This really helps you achieve a look that looks way more like the video you would get out of a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. It's really just a more professional look that's trying to emulate film, because film is not super contrasty and it's not very saturated. So those are all of the things that I use when I'm filming with my phone, and they're really helpful when I'm integrating phone footage along with the footage from my Canon camera. So I hope those were helpful. Keep just having fun filming and making videos and learning as you go. It's really the process that is the fun part. You'll never land at this point where you've learned everything. So enjoy every step of it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What?